Welcome to Ask the Good Doctor. I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire on Sirius XM Urban View, Channel 126, where talk empowers and becomes action. I am so glad that you are here for this conversation today because we are going to have a little chat about racism, one of the three pandemics that we have been forced to endure currently. I'd like to welcome Dr. Shantella Sherman to the show. She is the nation's foremost leading expert on eugenics. Hello, Doc Shan.
Hello, Dr. LaJoyce. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Welcome back. And
Great to
I'd
be here.
also like to welcome Dr. Jonathan Matthias. Hello, Dr. John. How are you?
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I'm great. How are you?
I am so happy to have you. He is a leading expert on race, culture in this country. And you're also a professor, aren't you?
I am a professor of psychology. I sure am.
There you go. Well, you are right for this conversation. So grab your good doctor notebooks. You are not going to want to miss a minute of this. Join us on Twitter at Ask the Good Doc, on Instagram and Facebook at Ask the Good Doctor, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So first of all and foremost, Doc Shan, I'd like for you to define for us exactly what is eugenics.
Wow. Okay. Well, in this nation, probably around 1840, we started believing that in the same way you could agriculturally mix different types of plants and animals to get the best possible product, that you could do that as well with people. And so what we decided is that we could breed out certain types of behaviors and breed in certain types of behavior. So you could create a phenotype, if you will, for the nation. What is normal? What is abnormal? What is American? What is patriotic? All of these things go into the DNA. And it was believed that in the same way that you transfer your height, your weight, hair texture, and things like that from parent to child, you also transfer things like poverty, which we all know is not necessary. It's not in the genetics, but it was believed that it was a genetic component to poverty, to criminality, to all types of immorality, things like this. And so we believe that if you kept certain people from having children, you would breed it out of the nation's culture. And if you promoted breeding practices within certain groups, you would always have the best possible product, the best stock, or the best crop. And
Ha!
so we're seeing a revisit of that in the nation now, but it actually infiltrated every aspect of the nation. So housing, education, medicine, politics, popular culture, it's all there.
Okay. You know, it's really interesting because we are in the midst of a mess right now. And across the country, local and state leaders are declaring racism a public health crisis or an emergency. And I think that this is the first time in our lifetimes, even in our parents' lifetimes, that racism has been declared a public health crisis. Dr. John, speak to that.
Yeah, definitely. And it definitely is a public health crisis because racism impacts pretty much every health and socioeconomic indicator that we see. So we know that Black Americans are suffering from COVID at disproportionate rates, only after Latinx folks. But both communities, part of that is racism, given the fact that we are kept back in terms of education, in terms of employment, in terms of housing, that places us disproportionately into jobs where we can't really take off. We don't have those opportunities, so we are more at risk. But all of that's connected to racism. We see the same thing with HIV. We see the same thing with cardiovascular disease. We see the same thing with mortality, where there's been research that shows that discrimination is linked to shortened telomere length, which literally
Mm,
limits your lifespan. So
yeah.
all of these things are connected.
Interconnected. That's why I
Mhm,
always say,
mhm.
how in the world can you actually expect for someone to get well if you do not attend to their mind, their body, and their spirit?
Mhm.
They are intertwined inexplicably, and
Yes.
you cannot listen. That's why I have a problem with speed doctoring,
Ooh,
I,
yes.
managed care, that
Ooh,
you don't sit down and have a conversation with me and find out my trouble.
yeah.
You don't, It's just been recently that doctors have asked women, do you feel safe at home?
Mm.
Imagine all of the women who were alone with someone that they trusted in authority, that they had an opportunity to tell, I don't feel safe at home, but no one ever asked them. So it's my hope that we get to the point where doctors even do start to ask about the emotional component of their life. What is hard for you to swallow? What is
Mm,
hard for you to digest?
mm.
And I am of the mindset as a naturopathic clinician that unless we do that, we're really not treating the whole patient, only a portion of it, of the patient. Go ahead, Doc Shan.
Well, you're both of you are right on point, and I think it gets to the heart of the matter. The reality is that, white people are also dying of their whiteness.
Come
Okay. Because,
pause.
you know,
Right.
because, this is the thing, when you cannot define yourself in and of itself, but you're always defined in comparison to someone else. When that someone or something else is out of place, quote unquote, you don't function. So the fact that you would not want to have universal health care because it means your Black neighbor is going to have health care, you believe it will give someone else access to something, not understanding that when you cut it off, you've cut it off for yourself. So
Yeah.
there's certain areas in West Virginia and there are
Can
rural northern places where there's one doctor and it happens to be a Black female who's traveling from county to county because the actual hospital system the hospital system within the county has shuttered. And
Yeah.
so now you have to have this Black female go door to door to treat you the way an old white doctor used to do years ago, because this community of rural white folks, and again, we're talking Vermont, we're talking certain areas of Massachusetts where they believed that they were kind of cut off and they were okay. Whiteness would keep them in place and keep them grounded. And suddenly they now lack the access that they need because they voted to cut things off because it could benefit someone else that didn't look like them.
yes, I have to go ahead, Dr. John.
No, I was going to say to that point, it reminds me of when Toni Morrison asked on Charlie Rose, who are you without racism? Are you any good? Do you still like it? And so it goes to that point that if you can only find identity in racism, then what identity do you actually have? Right.
Yeah.
And then in these times where racism tells you that as a white person, you should have advantages and access to economic status, so on and so forth. And we see that as a nation, those things are being taken away. Then who are you? So now you have this fictitious self-esteem, but you don't have access to any of the so-called advantages that you've been told you should have. So getting back to the holistic, right? That mind, body, spirit, all discombobulated.
Exactly.
Completely discombobulated. Let me digress. Let me throw in a little bit of snark intentionally here. That's just like the situation that was in Indianapolis, and a family did not want a Black waitress.
Mm.
So they asked for the manager, who was Black, and he complied. He gave them a white waitress. And he said, I didn't dare tell them that Kwame was in back cooking their food. Okay. We'd have had a ruckus. All right.
Yes. Yes.
This is what you're saying. They're dying of their whiteness. Without your racism, what do you have? I think that a lot of this has been spawned because what we're going to discover is that they are feeling panicked over the fact that by the year 2030, that we are going to be the global majority. Black and brown people will be the global majority. And like Doc Shan said, they would rather be at take a disadvantage themselves of something as critical as healthcare, just so we don't have it. And they're going to find, and I think that the mindset, and I'm not talking about all, because I have some good white people in my life, and I'm sure all of you do too.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, my daughter said that I caught her saying to her friends, some friends were like, I'm so embarrassed to be white. She's like, I'm not dealing with your white fragility today.
Right.
Don't
Oh
do it.
my. Thank God for the child riding in the back seat of the car.
All right. Okay.
And but this is where we are, because that's what it is. And I think that it's the white fragility that has them in a panic over them not being the majority anymore, and that we finally will be the majority, and they want to keep their knees on our necks
Well,
as
this
long as they can. Go ahead, doctor.
No, I'm sorry. No, I was just saying this is bringing to mind Dr. Franz Krauss Welsing's work.
Yeah,
In the
sure.
isolation, we were talking about the genetic, right? The genetic, really recessive traits, right? And so we're seeing that and you could talk to this even better than me, Dr. Shan. But, it's reminding me of that. So what we're seeing is an existential anxiety, right? So existential anxiety, and literally the threat of being wiped out, genetically speaking.
Well, and this is you're again, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. I sat at her feet for many years, and I loved the fact that she would start talking at 6 p.m. and it'd be 2 a.m. and we still be rapping, and it's a room
Okay.
full of people, and it's like, all right, we haven't flushed this out enough, so we're gonna come back and do it again next week. What you have to understand is that this is not new, and there's staples of it all over the place. So I look at this as a 100-year mark. So if you look 100 years ago, 1920, you had Warren B. Harding coming in, Warren G. Harding, he's coming in. We had race riots that were taking over. And I say race riots, but the real term is white mob violence. And so
Yes.
what you would have is anytime you have a stable Black community with stable Black upwardly mobile Americans doing their patriotic duty, you suddenly have visually something in white minds that says, I am being destroyed. All right. This is taking something away from me. Not the nation is benefiting from this. Okay. But this is somehow impeding and impacting my life. And so I would rather destroy, rape, rob, pillage, burn, destroy entire towns and the people in them to ensure that visually I don't have to look at you. I don't have to see this. And so right now, as Acumen is doing this pop culture thing where we deconstruct what you're seeing on television, someone was asking about sundown town.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can't come through this town, you can't come through the county because you're upsetting the white people here. Just your presence upsets them. We talk about the fact that Route 66, Nat King Cole is singing the song, he's getting it in. But if you were a Black person traveling Route 66, it was basically an interstate of sundown towns. And so that was the reason why you had to have this green book, this Negro motorist green book, because your life was in peril. And so I want you to understand this. We talk about it as if Trump all of a sudden did something. This has been here.
That's
All right.
it.
And in 1920, you were dealing with basically the residual of a pandemic, which was the flu.
Yep.
All right. You were also dealing with Black men coming back from World War I, being hung and lynched and mob violence against them. You were looking at towns, Black towns being destroyed. You were looking at systemically Anna towns. And I don't know how you are with the N word on your show, but at
Just
Anna
say what you
town
got
is
to say.
ain't no niggas allowed. And so you may not see whites only, but you would see a sign that said Anna on a billboard. And
Oh
Black
my.
people understood ANNA anywhere in a community meant ain't no niggas allowed, written by white folks to let you know that even the sheriffs, the court system, everyone in this town wants you through here, out of here, don't stop. All right. And if you break any laws or rules in the process of getting through here, you're going to be arrested. All right. Or you may have something worse happen to you. So this is not new.
Here's what I remember. I remember when we used to travel, we had a bath, put those pajamas on, they pack those sandwiches, freeze those cold pops, and you have your fruit, and they throw you in the back seat of the car. Basically, they want you to wake up when you get where you're going. If
Thank
you
you.
have pee, daddy would pull over, hold you up, let you do your thing, and you keep it pushing. And I never realized it was because we could, the thought of them, we just like, we going on a road trip, right? But
Right.
the thought of that, just the thought of that upsets me now. That my parents made it fun, but they were shielding us from something painful and something ugly and something, and and masked it so that we didn't feel what they had to, and to keep us safe. And I would just remember waking up sometimes and my dad just be standing on the side of the road peeing. And I was like, but we just left a gas station.
Ooh.
You know? And but then as I got older and started to learn, it was because we couldn't. And those kind of habits kind of stay with you. I remember taking the train, Jack Shan, one time when I was coming down to DC to be with you. And something happened on the train that a tree, it was a storm. And I woke up and I was like, surely we're in DC now, because I had been asleep like 3 hours. And I woke up and they said, we've been stuck in a tunnel for 3 hours. So I was like, okay. So I walked myself to the food cart and I asked for, and it was a mob scene down there. Everybody wanted food. And the lady said, all I can offer you is a cup of ice. I was like, that's all I need. A cup of ice. I went back, I opened up my little napkin on my little tray and laid out my lunch. And all the white people asked me, how did you know to bring food? I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I was thinking to myself, well, it started when I was a little girl. Whenever I travel, and to this day, my daughter will look at me and say, I know you got something to eat in that purse.
Absolutely.
Skills.
Yeah.
What did you call it?
No, I just called it survival skills, right?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what it is. It's how to remain safe in any circumstance. And you're right. We get these things passed down, and oftentimes our parents don't pass them down explicitly because of the pain. They're trying to shield us. But yeah, because I had the same thing, and I was born in '83, and so we were traveling in the '90s and stuff. But the same thing, my parents would pack the sandwich, and I thought maybe it was because they didn't want to spend the money, on the. But now I have to remember my dad was born in '50. This is probably when we get off of here, I'm calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, but yeah, no, you're right. It's intergenerational, but they pass down those survival skills.
Yeah, and Dr. Matthias, when you get into this mentally, emotionally, you have to understand, just what every adult was doing when they were looking after other people's kids. What I started realizing was that even in your own neighborhood, you're in a quote unquote black neighborhood. If a white person crossed that track or came into that neighborhood, even in your own space, you could be under duress.
Right.
So this thing of looking out for each other, that means something. My parents are from Mississippi. All right. So I don't care what year it was. Right. If we were traveling, we understood. And sometimes you can kind of look at the people and go, don't stop here. Mm-hmm. I'm in DC now. I go in places. Oh no, this is not. I don't feel. This doesn't feel good.
Wait a minute. I'm in Pennsylvania in the Poconos, and there was this new ice cream place, and they were like, "Come over here, free ice cream." And my daughter was like, "Oh, free ice cream!" And then she looked over to where they were standing. She's like, "Keep driving, keep driving, keep driving." Exactly. It didn't look right.
True. It's true.
Like they would welcome us.
Right. That's everywhere. Racism is everywhere. You talk about racism being a pandemic. It literally is everywhere. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from Georgia, and I've been all over for school and for jobs, and I'm now in New Jersey. But I went to grad school in San Francisco, and I tell some of my white colleagues, I say, I'm from Georgia, and I went to grad school in San Francisco, and say, oh, San Francisco must have been like a pleasant surprise, being in San Francisco after having been in Georgia. And I say, no, actually, San Francisco was way more racist than Georgia. I was like, because at least in Georgia, they let you know, don't come over here. In San Francisco, we welcome everyone, and then all of a sudden, all the doors are getting shut in your face, and you don't know why.
Right.
Listen, my cousin. We just extracted my cousin from San Francisco. She lived there 30 years. We brought her here in the midst of pandemic on Palm Sunday, and she just moved to New York City. She was like big and she was like, "Oh my God, so many Black people!" But listen, you all stay put. Don't go away. We'll be back with more on Ask the Good Doctor after this.
Right.